Hi, I'm Allie Zendrian, Editor-in-Chief of Brand News, and this is the Financial Services News You Might Have Missed podcast. This is where I uncover news gems that might not have gotten their full chance to sparkle, and I dust them off a little bit. I'm joined by my trusted co-host and my advisor, Brandon Galisi of Galisi Financial. Brandon, how's everything going?
Things are good. Not to brag like I was before the call, but out here on the West Coast, we're getting our costs of living. Really these last several weeks, truthfully, it's going to be sunny and I think 78 degrees today. So getting ready to go out for the WAOK after this podcast with Perla, who of course is in the room, have to spell it out, but it's been overall a good week. What about you? Obviously you got back from the conference last week, right before some snow hit the New York area.
Yes. So fortunately made it back just enough time to see a little bit of grass. And then 2 days later, it's all covered up. But you know what? I feel like it might be good exercise because Lord only knows I haven't been to the gym in a week. So, at least I got that shoveling in.
Yes, that's true. I mean, again, from the days living in West Virginia, I definitely shoveled my fair share of driveways. And it's, again, depending on how much snow you're getting. And I know you guys got dumped. You said school was canceled on Monday and Tuesday of this week. That's a lot of snow. So I could only imagine it's probably a lot of shoveling too. So there's the silver lining, I guess.
Yeah, I'll take it. So our first piece of news this week, I don't personally think that it fits in the category of news you might have missed because it actually did get some media attention and excitement around it. But I think that it's important and that as many people as possible should hear about it. AtoZ Communications client Financial Planning Association announced a strategic partnership with MarTech leader Snappy Kraken to rebuild and relaunch FPA PlannerSearch. For those who aren't familiar, this is available to CFP professionals who are FPA members and helps them with their searchability helps them with their searchability from the prospects and clients that they're looking to reach. As FPA's CEO Dennis Moore said in the press release, by partnering with Snappy Kraken, we're giving planners clarity, resources, and measurable marketing tools. This updated platform will reflect FPA's commitment to supporting members and making financial planning more accessible. So obviously, I am super duper excited about it, but I am not a financial planner, nor am I a CFP like somebody else that I know. So what did you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the one of the quotes that jumped out to me from the article specifically was it's going from a directory into a data-driven platform that matches consumers with financial planners based on their needs, expertise, and shared values. And I think that makes a lot of sense where there can be some value in a directory that might allow a consumer to find someone, or it adds a little bit more credibility that, oh, yeah, we can confirm they're a certified financial planner professional, things like that. But then making it a little bit more dynamic, like they're doing here with this partnership with Snappy Kraken, I think makes a lot of sense because consumers don't just want a list of names like, oh, great, I have a list of names. That's again, better than not having a list of at least somewhat, hopefully, qualified folks. And if they're an FPA, they're going to be qualified. But now what? Is what I could see the consumer thinking. So if there's some tools that helps, again, both sides, it should help the financial planners connect with the right types of clients, especially as the industry, I think, continues to evolve and advisors, a lot of advisors at least, or some, are starting to niche a little bit more and have a little bit more clarity on who specifically they serve versus, starting at the beginning days in a lot of big firms. If you can fog a mirror, you're a perfect fit as a client is what they say. So being able to even do it based on values and some other demographics and it being more dynamic in nature, I think is pretty neat.
I didn't know that about fogging a mirror. And then as I thought about it, I was like, oh, it means because you're alive. Got it. Okay.
It means that you're alive and you're breathing. Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Perfect client.
Yes. But another thing that everything that you were saying reminded me of, and so apologies if I am like elder millennialing you right now, but it reminded me of the Yellow Book, the phone book, and just feeling like, yeah, back in the day when you had one, you would go through, but it was basically the alphabetical list. I don't know how to distinguish people. There are names and phone numbers. Like there is no so-and-so is a little bit more special for this reason, or maybe if they had an advertisement, they looked a little more attractive than somebody else. Maybe that made them look sleazy. I don't know. But it was really just, here's a list to go to. So to your point, I agreed that if you could push somebody a little bit further in the right direction, as opposed to just, yeah, let me like take an afternoon and like go through this assortment of financial planners and see who I like.
Right. It takes some of the lifting off of the consumer. And again, also helps the financial professional at the same time, right? Where instead of now, maybe so that person did research you a little bit, but then they call and then all of a sudden they're not a good fit. Now that again, I'm not saying that's a total waste of time, but if you could just connect with, hey, here are 3 planners that we think you'll love based on your demographic, based on the values that you likely both share, it's just going to make that process so much smoother for everyone involved.
Yes, agreed. So the part of the quote that I had read from Dennis Moore about making financial planning more accessible, I think it's really important that people realize that as part of all of this reimagining of PlannerSearch, there's going to be a lot more consumer education about the power of financial planning and how it serves people and what it's used for. As I was reflecting on this, I think that that's important because also was having this conversation on the schoolyard while I was waiting to pick up my daughter. I feel like we didn't learn those practical things in school. Like if you have a medical problem, like you don't, I mean, sometimes you try to fix it yourself, but more often than not, you understand, okay, well, if it's an emergency, I call 911. If it's bad enough, I should go to the hospital. If it's not that bad, maybe I should go to urgent care or otherwise see the doctor. That thought process has been like hammered out to you throughout your life. But nobody really explains to you, well, if your financial life is too complicated for you, what do you do? It just seems like you just sort of, shrug the burden and like keep going. So I wish that there was more education on, well, you might need this kind of resource, or this is available to you, or that is. And then you could make an informed decision instead of just saying, well, I guess my financial life stinks.
That's a really good analogy, right? Because I mean, you could ask anyone about the medical one and be like, hey, you have this kind of issue, where do you go? And, now we could talk about the wonkiness of medical insurance, and that could change things a little bit, but people know exactly what to do. Just like you said, they know how to triage what type of medical issue they might be having and what professional help that they would go to. Versus, you're right, in the financial space, I think probably one of the issues of this is I can't remember how many, but so many quote unquote financial advisors. That's an intentional quote because there's a lot of folks that arguably aren't doing a lot of financial advising and are doing a lot of product pushing instead. Not that products alone are the problem, but if that's all someone is doing, but pretending like they're being more holistic, that's really where the issue can come in. And there really isn't a standard where, I mean, you talked about the medical industry, which is substantially older than of course, financial planning. And there really isn't a standard. I mean, there's a lot of amazing advisors, a lot of great advisors that are going to be in FPA. And again, that's why even a directory alone, let alone now that it's getting a bit more dynamic, is already a good first step for people to at least feel more confident. But even to get to that point, that person has to know somehow, whether through a social media campaign, whether through something the CFP board is sharing in the public eye, talking to your friends, colleagues, coworkers. Who do you go to when you have financial questions? Oftentimes it might be an accountant, and most accountants aren't really suited to answer your financial questions beyond the tax preparation side. And so where do you go? So if your social circle hasn't suggested, or you haven't ended up doing some research on your own, where would you go? I know the CFP board's working on this, but trying to make financial advice a bit more standardized. So hopefully people could triage a little bit more effectively. Oh, I've got this issue. This is the type of person I would go. I'd go to an accountant for this, but I probably want a bit more holistic planning. Maybe I go to a CFP professional for X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully with all of this, so both on the financial planner side, so being able to then be connected with those prospects and clients and the people who are looking for you, instead of feeling like it's just a black box and somebody searches into Google and magically they find you. I think that was another interesting part of all this, is that we've discussed before on the podcast. I feel like there's not as much accountability and metrics and whatnot around marketing and PR as there should be. And so being able to have that place that says, yeah, you know what, I know that so-and-so found me and it's because of PlannerSearch. Or I know so-and-so found me and it was the Facebook ad that I did. Having these ways of knowing that this is working, this is not working, I should stop doing this so I can spend more time with my clients. I would call that a win.
Absolutely. I mean, right now, depending on the type of marketing that advisors are doing, people are like, oh, I'm going to invest in SEO. I'm like, okay, well, how do you know that's working? And if it's like kind of a shoulder shrug, it's like, well, okay, well, how do we then figure out how to determine even if something is working? How do we track and measure success? Because of course, if something is working, recently I've been boosting some more posts on Instagram on posts that have already done well. And what I'm trying to do, and I'm newer at least boosting posts and kind of the meta ads type of space, but my goal is to see, okay, what's performing well? What's at least my hypothesis as to why I think it did well? And then try to do more of that and then test that. and see, okay, and again, look at numbers, look at cost per profile visit. How many followers am I getting? What are the metrics? Again, not that it's all about how could I save a couple pennies per profile visit. That's not the type of business that we're in. But if there's some disparity between one ad versus the other, well, why am I spending way more money for this one? Then I can see that, track, measure that data. And then ultimately the point of this data is to either change behavior or confirm current behavior.
Yep. And I think with understanding those behaviors, it might also help you to understand who your client is. So I know that you've figured out exactly who that person is, but understanding these behaviors and that I connect with so-and-so on this kind of platform, and this is the message that they like hearing from me, I think will offer a lot of clarity.
100%. You hit the nail on the head there. If you don't really know who you're talking to, and this could be any business, it's like when you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one because it's too broad. So I know that for me, that's been super helpful. Just getting more and more details on, okay, this is who I really do my best work for serving, has then also made content a lot easier to make. It then makes that data a bit easier to track and measure because again, I know definitely much more of who I'm trying to reach. And there's just different pain points and the language is going to look much different talking to high earning folks in their 30s to 40s versus someone who's 70 years old.
So since everybody knows that I am your client, I love that you put the 40s in there. I was like, oh, please don't say just in your 30s, I'll feel bad.
No, I work with plenty of folks in their 40s. And again, I don't exclusively work with, it's not like once you hit 50, all of a sudden you can't work with me type of situation. So don't worry, you won't age out of it. But no, but my marketing is typically going to resonate with young Gen X to millennials versus, again, a 70-year-old might resonate, but it's much less likely.
Yeah, got it. Well, our second piece of news is about AI loan agent Betsy, which is from ElevenLabs and better.com. It's said to help better automate mortgage conversations at scale. In the press release, it said that in 2025 alone, Betsy placed 1.89 million inbound and outbound calls, which saved Better's loan officers more than 1,600 hours of human time each month. So as I was thinking about this, it brought back to mind the conversation that Josh Brown had at the Fearless Investing Summit last week about how AI is really going to be more in the places of like back office and those areas that could use technology automation versus the human. But it also made me feel like, so then should humans not be doing this? Do I not need a human in this process? Or is it just more often than not, I don't?
I don't exactly know what the exact conversations were because I don't know about you, but at least speaking for me, if I'm looking to get a mortgage, which is no small task today, that's not like, oh, I want to open this one credit card. You could see, oh, that's kind of a low stakes decision. Getting your mortgage, it's not the highest of stakes, but it's not low stakes. You want to make sure that you get the right one and you understand if there's any prepayment penalties and what all the closing costs. And there's a lot of moving parts. Of course, you have a home and you know exactly what I'm talking about here. It would be interesting to see what that AI tool, because it's even voice with the ElevenLabs in there, is actually helping. Because again, if it's basic, say, data entry, hey, we just need you to check a box and give me your W-2. We need to get these tax forms. Okay, yeah, we can probably automate that. We might not even need a voice conversation, if you will, unless maybe someone prefers that. But once it starts getting into, again, the good mortgage lenders or mortgage brokers are going to be more consultative in nature, understanding your unique situation and then determining, hey, based on this, I think X, Y, or Z lending company would be the best for you. At least that's what independent mortgage brokers do. Mm-hmm. I don't know where AI would be when it comes to we'll call it consultative side. Because that's still where I think humans are going to potentially be valuable in that particular spot.
Yeah, you're confirming what I was thinking. So I felt the same way. Like, look, if this is tedious nonsense, basically, then sure, absolutely. But as I was thinking about even refinancing, having that thought process behind like, okay, well, does this make sense? I would feel sad if somebody then missed out on you're totally like 1% of the situation. But for you in particular, you need X, Y, and Z because that would help you with this or whatever goal that you had in mind. But I guess apart from that, it sounds like it's fine.
Yeah, I think, again, it's just the devil's in the details of where is it actually automating? When are you communicating with AI? Because I think if it's you start to finish, I would personally struggle a bit with that, similar to what you're sharing. I want to ask questions. And what if you ask it a question, it gives you the answer? you make a decision based on the answer that you were given. And then all of a sudden, oh, just kidding, it actually hallucinated. That's not how it works. Now, who knows what the liability looks like on the lender's end. And also as a consumer, I would be pretty upset if I was told specifically it works this way. Come to find out it doesn't work that way. Could be some issues. So again, yes, how do we get the tedious tasks, get those done with the AI? But again, we're not talking about a tiny decision here. Back to what I said at the beginning of this. So AI handle the tedious stuff, but I'm probably wanting to talk to a human before I get a several $100,000 mortgage.
Right. I mean, only probably the biggest purchase in your whole life. So our next piece of news is from Treble. It was talking about its press to pipeline activation in the Age of AI report. In the press release about this, it was shown that AI assistants have overtaken Google search as the #1 research tool for enterprise technology buyers. The report also found that 47% of buyers now start their vendor search with ChatGPT or Gemini or things like that. Compared to 43% with Google search, which was interesting. And then, so even that topped vendor websites at 42% and trade publications at 40%. And what I loved about their findings, and granted they're a PR firm like myself, but the report also found that 90% say recent third-party media coverage directly influences vendor shortlisting, and 92% say coverage within the last 90 days matters for credibility. So I would amen to that. I would love to see if you had any thoughts there, Brandon.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, at least for me, I'm not Googling near as much as I used to. I'm using Perplexity a good amount. In fact, so much so that with the new iPhones have this little action button here that you can do pretty much whatever you want from a ringer. You could have it open your camera. You can set it. You could have it do all sorts of things. I have it open Perplexity for me. So even typical Google searches, usually I'm going to go to Perplexity, and then depending on the type of question, then of course fact check it with the sources that Perplexity is providing me with. And then I think to your second point, Allie, about how it seems like it's even more important to have basically third-party verification or validation, if you will, through PR. I think that makes a ton of sense, especially I feel like that's always been important, but arguably, and maybe in the data suggesting this, even more so now, because is it actually me? Like I could be saying how great my firm is all day long and truthfully having AI write a ton of that. But if you see something at Galeesi Financial on a different news site, on Investopedia, MarketWatch, NASDAQ, Investment News, etc., like, oh, I mean, and sure, some people do pay exclusively for placements and it's almost not completely accurate, but when it's legitimate, people can see that. And it's like, oh, I'm going to have a bit more trust into this particular service.
Yeah. And to your point, so I think even the recency of it, because if you're thinking about it, so in your case, like, so had your articles been from 3 years ago or something like that, it's like, well, A, did he fall off the face of the earth for the last 3 years? If you have awards also like that long ago, okay, then did your business get kind of suspect? Yeah, I even had something in class today while I was teaching intro to PR. We were using an example to create a newsletter, and I went to a local Long Island group's website, and the latest news that they had was from 2024. And granted, this is like a local organization. It doesn't necessarily matter, but it also still doesn't really look that good.
I fully agree. I mean, it's even similar to if you go on to someone's social media page, let's say you go to a business and they haven't posted yet since 2024. What do you think? Oh, are they still in business? Like what's going on here? So I'm really not surprised that, like I said, the article is talking about how important not only having this third party validation is, but also it can't just be from years and years ago, because are they still in business, or did they stop doing this? Were they good at one point and now they're not good? I feel like it's just going to make people have those questions. And again, especially with AI now, you can fake a lot more things more easily, but the third party verification, still, as long as it's from the trusted sources, those trusted sources have a very vested interest to make sure that, hey, they're putting out good content, they're promoting good products and good companies because they don't want to hurt their own reputation. So I think it could be a win across the board.
Yeah. Thank you. So our final piece of news is from the CFP Board. Its press release caught my eye because of the headline that it had, which was Gen Z college students are hungry for financial education. I apologize in advance for this because this is a lot of data that I'm just throwing at you and then expecting you to listen. But I think it's all important. 2/3 of Gen Z college students say they want to learn more about personal finance topics, according to the new study, which was in the report Dollars and Cents. a report on the personal finances of college students, in case any of you want to check that out. Another important point I thought was 83% of college students agree that financial well-being is important for their happiness and life satisfaction. Students view money as a path to independence. That 51% of them see it that way. 60% see it as a means to achieve their long-term goals. And 58% consider it a tool for security and stability, while 40% also see it as a way to enjoy oneself right now. 2 in 5 acknowledge that money is a source of stress and anxiety. Despite mixed feelings about money, 4% of students feel confident managing their basic personal finances. But it was interesting based on gender, which I know that we've talked about on the podcast. And to me, it was interesting that this goes even as young as college age. So college men, 1% of them feel confident managing their finances, versus in the case of women, it is, of course, I lost that number, but
I feel like it was 60%. I think I remember it being 60 for whatever reason. I remember that off the top of my head.
It was significant enough. Yes, I will confirm that. And I apologize for literally the verbal dump, but would love to see which path you want to take that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's so much on this. I mean, maybe I'll start with the last piece. This again, I think it was 71% college men were confident, and I think it was 60. I'll let you confirm that. That part wasn't as shocking, I guess, because I feel like in general, if we're talking in stereotypes, sometimes men are maybe too confident than they might, than maybe they should be, depending on what the task is, compared to their female counterparts. So that one didn't jump out as terribly surprising. Although it was, I mean, I thought both the fact that it was at 60 and 71% was a reasonably high number from a confidence perspective of managing their own money, especially since we see a lot of the data that a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and the large percentage of people that aren't able to afford a $1,000 emergency, and all those other stats that we've talked about on the podcast before. So it's at least encouraging that at least as of now, they're excited to manage money to some degree. But besides that, what else really jumped out to you? Any of those stats that you shared that you were really interested in?
So just to confirm, you were correct. It was 60%. So way to be on top of that. I thought that was interesting. I also, the percentage that was saying that they were getting themselves stressed out, 2 in 5. So I think it's interesting on the one hand, feeling like you're confident that you can handle your budgeting and whatnot, but then it still stress you out. I don't know. I guess on the one hand, I can understand how those two things exist in tandem. And on the other hand, I feel like, well, but if you feel confident in your budgeting, then why is it stressing you out? That could also be, look, you're 18 to 20, whatever, you don't have that much money and you're about to have a lot of student loans come at you, so that could be stressing you out. But yeah, I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah, because at least on the men's side, that math doesn't add up. There were 71% that feel confident. You would add another 2 and 5, 40% on top, and that number's over 100. So that doesn't really work. So yeah, I feel like it's just depending on life stage. They might be confident maybe with the amount of money they've been managing themselves now, but then once they start having to pay back the loans, to your point, maybe it would likely be a bit more stressed. So, or also people can still be stressed about their money, even if they have some level of confidence in managing it. I think, where I always talk about how do we reduce financial stress, because I don't think we can ever necessarily fully eliminate it. But if we can at least reduce it, I think we're moving in the right direction. And if someone feels like they fully eliminated it, write in, let me know. I think that would be quite a feat. But even if we're heading in the right direction, hey, let's just reduce this. So that's why I feel like you can be confident, but still occasionally something could be stressful. If something happens from a medical, or unfortunately, we're replacing our floor because our dishwasher leaked all over it recently. And we have to do the majority of the house because we couldn't, they don't make that flooring that we put in just 3 to 4 years ago. They don't make it anymore. So now we have to get new flooring. And so all those fun things of home ownership, as you very well know. So there could just be certain times that you're confident, but then something pops up. And even if you are prepared for it, you don't like using your emergency fund for different things. So that's why I think it's like both can be true at the same time. You can still have some stress about money, but still feel confident moving forward. It's kind of two truths at once kind of situation.
Yes, that is very fair. Also, I'm very sorry about your dishwasher. I don't understand why it is that dishwashers have to basically ruin your life. Why do they need to flood to the extent that they do and cause that much damage? It's beyond me.
Right. Very convenient when they work.
Oh,
yeah. Very convenient
Yeah.
when they work. I'm glad I don't have to hand wash a bunch of dishes, but
Sure.
yeah, it is a bummer. I know you've had issues obviously with your dishwasher as well, and then we get to deal with the lovely insurance company. So that's why, again, the example is like you can feel confident, but then still be like, okay, this is a little bit of a stressful situation. Even if insurance is going to cover a portion, they're not covering all of it, and so two truths at once. You can be confident, but also still get stressed.
Yes. That's very smart on your part. So the number of students I think who are interested in learning about personal finance at this age, hats off to them, and I appreciate the fact that they want to do that. I hope that we will provide them with that education because, especially if they're asking for it, let's give it to them while they're asking. Going back to the Financial Planning Association, that they do work with certain schools and work to promote financial literacy. But college being arguably that last stop where you can get that real world education without being in the real world, if we could give people the look, renting versus owning, here's the pluses and minuses, you make an educated decision when it comes to you. Any of those kind of lessons would be super helpful for all those adults who never got them.
Right, right. I agree. So I thought that was encouraging that a large portion of Gen Z wants to learn more about finances. And then what I found interesting along the same lines was only 5% trust social media influencers is what it shared in the article too, which especially it being Gen Z, I'm like, that number seems incredibly low, and not even just because it's Gen Z, but I would feel like even millennials, because there are so many influencers and they have millions of followers across a lot of these different platforms. So I think that was encouraging. And even if we'll say the data is a little bit skewed, I would think the number's probably a little bit higher, to be honest. But someone asking, hey, do you trust social media for your financial advice, is almost like, I kind of do, but I probably don't want to say yes here because maybe they're in the moment being like, maybe I shouldn't just trust social media when they're being asked that question. But I think that's really powerful. And again, we've talked about it on the show a ton, but I really am hoping that more and more organizations, obviously the CFP board is doing what they can, and even just other CFP professionals that are creating good content out there. I hope that it can be a twofer where that's not an influencer, but we do, for on social media, we do have some level just simply for being on the platform. But hopefully, Gen Z and even the other generations can see, hey, who am I trusting? Because there's, just like anything, there's going to be great advice on social media, and there's going to be horrific, legal, fraud, scammy, sleazy advice on social media about pretty much any topic out there.
Sure.
Obviously, we're talking about finance here. So how do you know who to trust? And again, if organizations like the FPA and the CFP board continue to market the message on, hey, this isn't a guarantee. Every single person with a certain designation isn't always going to be the greatest ever. But if it can at least be something to look for where, hey, all things held equal, this person at least is committed to this industry, and they clearly didn't get their license 2 weeks ago and are now just hawking insurance to anyone with a pulse who can fog a mirror,
Yeah.
then I think that's a step in the right direction. They at least have a general sense, hey, who do I follow? Back to your medical analogy, they at least have some level maybe of triage. Hey, I've got this financial issue. I've heard the CFP thing is probably a good person to look for, and then maybe do that versus, again, follow what I would call goober advice on social media.
Oh, I like that. Well, so I love everything that you said. I would hope that people just realize, so seeing like your kind of content or anybody else who's credible, who's putting their content out there, even just that there is help. Because there's so many times, I don't know whether it's because money has become that thing that's so private, or there's shame and whatnot around it, whatever it is, it just feels like that thing that some people feel like you just have to deal with it yourself. Just put on your big girl or big boy pants and handle it. And I mean, that's not necessarily wrong. You should handle your financial situations, but you also probably don't have the wherewithal to do it. So if that's the case and you realize that, please go seek help.
Yeah, I fully agree. And it does seem like our generation and younger is starting to feel maybe a little less taboo when it comes to talking about money. Again, that's obviously each person, each situation is going to be a bit different, but it seems to be, at least from my personal experience in talking to different people, even we'll call it non-clients, I feel like more people are somewhat willing to share. And I think that's helpful that people are at least willing, again, not sharing it in a braggy way or anything like that, but just so people are aware of what's going on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for all the great work that you're doing, and especially for putting yourself out there, being able to put out good advice versus not good advice. Always helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I have a lot of fun doing it, and I plan to keep it up.